a second, it will now switch to say end stream. We are now streaming live, and you can see up here it says live and it's got a little counter. And then what pops up is a little view that tells me how many viewers we have going in YouTube. So obviously in Nathan's personal YouTube at 10 p.m., we don't have anybody in there. But as we start building the audiences in the YouTube rooms, or if you start streaming to one that does have a significant audience, you will be able to see how many people are in YouTube. It will not show you how many people are in WisePub, but we don't care because we're going to be in WisePub in a second anyway. So we are now live, literally live in YouTube. If you were go to the Nathan's personal YouTube channel, you'd see us on the live stream. But we are not really live in WisePub because unlike YouTube, WisePub doesn't just automatically go live when a stream hits it. You have to tell it to go live. And so the way we do that is we go up to that top gear and we just click start stream. It's going to confirm, yes, this is recordable. Do you want to start a recording? You can click yes. You can even click no. It doesn't matter because we don't use the recordings from WisePub. We use them from StreamYard. But I always click yes anyway, just so I have a backup, just in case something happens on the StreamYard side that screws up the recording. I have a WisePub version. But the StreamYard will always be the better quality one because all the presentations and all the audio and all the video is coming from StreamYard to WisePub. It can't get better. It can only get worse when it connects to a second point. So StreamYard is the originating point. It's always going to be the better quality one. And that's where we get the recordings from. All right. Once you do that, you also want to unpause the chat. I would assume in most cases we want to do that. And then we can either click the X up here or just click somewhere outside there. And you will see that we are now live. Now, you will need to make sure that you mute, and this is the little mute button. It's a little hard to see on the background there on my name, but there's a little speaker icon in the bottom left. You will want to make sure that when you log in here, you mute it. And as you can see, mine started out muted because it's going to start however you leave it, because you want to hear the audio out of StreamYard. You don't want to hear it out of WisePub because we're actually connected to StreamYard. We're live in StreamYard. We want to hear and see what's in StreamYard, not what's coming through on WisePub and have an echo because we're hearing it twice. So you always want it to be muted here. And if you do that and you leave it that way, it's just going to give you a warning that it is muted. So just click the X. And now we are literally live, and you can see up here it's blinking that it's recording. Once in a while, when it tries to start the recording, it'll fail. It'll try again a couple times. And even if it ultimately fails and never is successful, it really doesn't matter. It's only a backup. StreamYard is the one we want. So again, we are live in both apps. I'm going to put them side by side just so you can see that we're streaming in StreamYard. What I do in StreamYard is reflected in WisePub. However, there is a 20-second delay, plus or minus a little bit, between the two. So when you are, if you are ever on screen or talking to anybody, doing anything, you really want to be watching the StreamYard one because that's the live one. If you're trying to have a conversation with somebody and look at what they're sharing on the screen, and you're watching WisePub, you're going to be hearing StreamYard and seeing 20 seconds later. So it's really messy if you do that. So we do want to have WisePub open. It's necessary to have WisePub open, but you want to really focus. If you're going to interact with somebody, you want to be looking at StreamYard. Now, you'll see if I add my screen share here, it pops up in there. That was pretty much no delay. But again, like it really depends how many people are on and all of that. There's a number of factors that could have taken 20, 30 seconds, or it could take 2 seconds. So there's that. Let's see what else. We talked about screen sharing, green column, blah, blah, blah. All right, let me go back into StreamYard because most of what we need to talk about is in here. Okay, let's talk about the chat. So on the right, we have the chat column. This first icon up here, so these are different tabs like in the chat. This first one, which is the default, the little bubble with the ... in it, this is the main chat window. This is the first one everybody sees, us and the audience. And this is always a group chat. This is like if you were in Zoom and you set it where everybody could post, not just the hosts and panelists, but everybody could post to everybody, and everybody did that. Everybody can see everything in here. Now, when you want to pause the chat, which is a couple of times you want to do that, you're going to go up to the settings and you're going to click chat paused. And you will see this, that the chat is paused down here, but the audience won't see that. They will just go to type a message and then they'll get a warning that the chat has been paused. So if we do pause the chat, I have some boilerplate text that I'll send you as part of the SOP that you can paste in here that basically just says the chat has been paused. If you'd like to send us a message, hover over our message in the chat, click on the double speech bubble icon, and you can send us a private message. So let me show you what that's all about. Okay, so this area on the right is the chat column, and it has a few different tabs at the top. The default tab is the little speech bubble in the dot, dot, dot. And what that will do, yeah, I'm sorry, let's start this whole thing again. All right, on the far right is the chat column. And like I said, if you're on a small screen, it will be actually below the presentation. It has a few different tabs at the top. The one that everybody starts out on by default is the one that looks like a speech bubble with a dot, dot, dot in it. This is the group chat. This is open chat where everybody sees everything. So, like in Zoom, where you can set it so that everybody can post to everybody, this is like that, except you can't change it. You change tabs to do different things. You can't change the setting on the tab. So anybody that posts in the general chat, everybody will see it. Now, when you post as an admin, it will light up your, I shouldn't say as an admin, anybody who's logged in, well, yeah, anybody who's logged into StreamYard as an admin, it'll light up green a little bit. So normally when I get in the room, I type like, welcome to opening playbook, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll see I light up like a little bit green up here, and my message is here. Now I'm also logged into the room as a visitor in another window, and I'm going to type good morning to these wonderful people that are hosting this webinar. And you can see like all the visitors will show up as gray. Now I can type hi visitor and so on. Now um, the first message I usually post when I get into the room is like a welcome to the show, because we get a lot of people and it's a group chat and everybody says hello to everybody else. My welcome message very quickly gets scrolled right off the screen. So what I do after I post the welcome is I click on the little pin, which pins it to the top of the column. And now, as a whole bunch of people come in and they start typing new messages and everything, it doesn't matter really what happens to my welcome. It's always pinned at the top. Everybody can see that. So that's what the pin does. Now, if I want to send a private message to somebody, well, before I get to that, one of the other things I can do is so if I have a message here, let's say visitor asks a question like, are there text alerts? And then a couple of other people, post messages, whatever. I can go in here, I can click on the little at sign, which will still create a publicly visible message, but it will tag that person so they know who I'm answering. And I could say, yes, you get, you know, text, email, and Telegram alerts or whatever. Doesn't matter. And you can see it tags that person. So they will not only be able to see that they were tagged because it's bold, they will also get like a little red dot up here on the at sign, which shows them all the messages in which they were tagged. So they can switch to this tab and see every message where they were tagged in it and not have to find it and scroll through. So that's pretty cool. Now, the other thing that I was about to say a minute ago is if we want people to be able to send us a private message where only the host can see it, um, and again, this is going to take training the audience, and we'll get into how we're going to do that later on. But what they can do is you can do this as a host to anybody. The visitors can only do it back to the hosts. But what they can do is, or you can do is hover over anybody's message and click on the little double speech bubble icon. And what that will do is create a private message window where I can say, hey, visitor, send me your email and blah, 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 blah. And then when I do that, it creates a private conversation between me and that person. And I'm just typing on the other screen now and say, here's my, I did it in the wrong window. And they can say, here's my email. And we can go back and forth. And then you can go back to the private messages or back to the window you were at before. And this is something that I posted accidentally. So you can go back and forth between your private messages and your group chat up here. One of the cool things about this is that it threads the messages. So this is visitor, and this is the last message that was there. This will keep our conversation together, but also separate from everything else. So now if Joe Blow were to private message me, it would appear as another button here. And if 10 different people are private messaging me, and each of them sends me 5 messages, I don't have 50 messages to scroll through. I only have one button for each person. And then when I click on it, I see all of their messages and my messages to them. So by threading the conversations, it makes it so much easier than Zoom to be able to go back and answer a question and figure out what I've answered and what I haven't. And I don't have to scroll back through the whole chat to then tap somebody and then answer them at the bottom and then figure out where I was and go to the next question and answer it. It's much, much easier this way. The only thing, the only real downside to this is that we have to train the attendees that this is a different way of doing it. And if they want to send us a private message, they need to hover over our message and click on the start private message button. Now, and another thing that's different from Zoom, even with the private messages, is that because let's say Joe Blow hovers over my David M message and private messages me, only David M is going to see it. All the other moderators are not going to see it. It's literally a private message. So there is no way at the moment for somebody to message all hosts and panelists like you can in Zoom. They are working on that. In fact, they're working on basically an exact simulation of the way that the Zoom chat works so that we can switch that on and off if we want to, I guess. I don't know exactly how it's going to be implemented, but they are adding essentially a clone of the Zoom methodology for the chat. But I'm not sure it's actually going to be better to have that, but it'll be an option in the very near future. For now, We have a group only chat where we can at people, but it will still be visible to everybody. And then we have the private messages. And again, if I'm on the group chat like you see right now, and someone sends me a private message, it will temporarily pop up in a green bar, and it will permanently put a red dot here until I go over to it and see my new messages. And then new messages or unread messages are bold compared to other. You can't tell because there's nobody else in here, but new unread messages are bold compared to the ones that you've read already. And once you feel like, all right, I'm done with that conversation, I don't need to do anything else, you can close that by clicking the X, and you can get rid of all the threads you don't need to respond to anymore to really narrow down what's left for you to do. They can still open another private message to you and it will continue the thread. You will see the previous messages. So, for example, if I go to my other window and I type another private message, um, I still see the private messages that we were looking at a minute ago. It's part of the same thread, but it's off your screen when you click the X. So hopefully that makes sense. So management of the chats will take getting used to. In my opinion, though, there are numerous advantages to it. It's way better than Zoom. A lot less scrolling through oblivion to answer people. What else? If you pin a message to the top, like I do with my welcome message, which 15 minutes in, I get rid of, don't click the X. If you click the X, it's only removing it for you and everybody else still sees it. You need to unpin it, which gets rid of it for you and everybody else. So just make sure you do that. It's not the end of the world if you don't, but better if you do. Okay. What else? What we do when we go to promo, which we'll talk about in more depth, but just to show you while we're talking about the chat, what we do when we go to promo and then leave it that way when we leave the room and there's no live show is we pause the chat so that people can't have a conversation during the promo, and so that nobody can post stuff when nobody's in here looking at, no, none of us are in here looking at it. So the way we do that is we go back up, and this is something we did when we first set the stream live. We unpaused it. You just pause it again. Now, when you do that, it shows a message to the moderators that the chat is paused. It does not show that message to the attendees. So I have in the SOP, and I'll give it to you, I just have boilerplate text that as soon as I do that, I post a message here. The chat is now paused. If you'd like to ask a question, please click on this post and click on the double speech bubble icon to send me a private message. And that way they have the instructions right there. It won't scroll off the screen because with it paused, nobody can post anything. And it'll be the last thing they see is this is paused and here's how to private message me. And then I basically just stay on the private message tab because nobody can post in the group one anymore. And for the whole promo, I'm here. But we'll get to the promo part in a couple of minutes. Let me take a sip of tea. Okay. What else? Oh, so we talked about the chat a lot, but the thing we didn't talk about is the fact that this is in WisePub, which means that even though our stream is coming from StreamYard, we're chatting with the attendees directly in WisePub because StreamYard cannot chat to WisePub. What that means is everything we do in WisePub chat cannot be seen by the YouTube attendees. So we still need to chat within StreamYard. Let me find my correct window. Hold on a second. Okay. So we still need to chat within StreamYard to the YouTube people. We could do it in YouTube. You could open YouTube, but then it's a third thing you have to watch. You don't have to. StreamYard can talk to YouTube. It just can't talk to WisePub as far as the chat goes. So we're really watching two chats when we're in here. So as long as this menu on the right is set to comments, which is what they call the chat, and that's what it is set to by default when you enter the room, then this column right here is your chat to YouTube. Anybody that chats to you from YouTube will show up here. and you can chat back to them by posting down here. Now, one thing to know is that it's a little wonky. It doesn't like recognize line breaks. So if I were to type something in here like hello and then shift enter and then say yes, it has alerts, it's going to post that like as one line with no space between the end of one line and the beginning of the next. So when we're doing something like, and again, you don't have to post anything in here that isn't critical for everybody to see. But we're doing a lot of editorial stuff, at least in the shows that I do. We're giving out trade recs and stuff like that. So if they're giving out a trade rec and they're posting the trade rec in the chat, to me, that's something important that needs to get posted in both chats because everybody needs to see it no matter which platform they're on. So if we were to go post something like a trade rec and we were to copy it, let me just copy one as an example. If we were to take this trade rec that that we post in here, right? So if I post a trade rec in here like this, it's perfect, it's beautiful. But if I go here, where's my window? If I do that here for YouTube, it's going to be like illegible. So it's a little wonky. What I tend to do is, because I don't want to really have to open YouTube and watch YouTube for like the 2 or 3 posts that I ever have to do in here, I do like line separators at the end. I do like space and a couple of slashes or space and a couple of dots. And then when I post that, you can at least figure out what it says. That's a lot better. This is a lot better than this one. Now, one thing to note is when you hover over these, the word show appears. You don't want to click that because what that means is it's literally going to show that comment on the screen share. So if I click this, it's going to show whatever I posted or whatever the person that, posted to me, it's going to show that on the screen share. And it's literally showing that to everybody. So you don't want to do that. If you do it accidentally, just click it again to hide it. It will appear for a second and disappear. Not the end of the world. But you generally don't want to do that. You just want to post down here and that's it. All right. What else? I think that's pretty much it regarding like the interface. We've gone over a ton of stuff to just kind of orient you to the 2 different platforms, discuss all the things that are different between the platforms and Zoom. And there's even more to show you because it can do more stuff. But I'm just want to kind of show you the basics of what it needs to do or what you need to do to just kind of replicate what we do in Zoom. And then we can get into some of the fancier things that it can do. So just to kind of recap the basic steps that we covered to just get this thing going live. And then I want to take it to the next couple of steps now that we've really covered the interface quite a bit. So the first thing you're doing is you're logging into the correct studio in StreamYard. You're getting your mic and camera sharing set up. You're getting your screen share set up if you need to share your screen and setting the appropriate layout. We went to the create button in the top. We created a live stream that streamed to the correct Wise Pub room and the correct YouTube channel. Then we set it go live. Then we switched over to Wise Pub. We set the stream live and we unpaused the chat so we could talk to people. Once we do those things, we are a live webinar. We are streaming to YouTube and WisePub. What I'm saying and showing on my screen is being seen by them. We can chat in the group chat, etc. So even though I just spent, I don't know, an hour or whatever it was talking to you, the steps to really just get it going and get it live are far, far simpler than all the words it took to just explain how everything works and all the different parts of each platform and all that. So even though this seems overwhelming at this point, Um, I literally boiled down the steps to like set it live into like 6 or 8 clicks, and you can do it in less than a minute once you get used to it. And then I'm going to go over more steps for what we need to do for like the promo and the link drop and closing it out. And again, it's going to be a lot more words, but it's going to boil down to just a handful of clicks to start it, a handful of clicks for CTA, and a handful of clicks to close it out. So once you do it, I would say 2 webinars, this will seem like a much smaller hurdle. So if it feels overwhelming at the moment, don't worry. I'm gonna go through this with you as a test run as many times as needed, and I will be on your first live one with you. And after that, it will feel a lot different. Okay, so now that we're live and we've been talking. Oh, one other thing to mention is that I don't know if everybody that's watching this video has already kind of been moved to an editorial plus promo setup. I think so, but I don't know for sure. So just to kind of cover that, if you've only really ever done like promo only webinars in Zoom, where you open it an hour early, you're playing music for an hour, and you're hyping them up for 30 minutes beforehand, and then we go live and we go right into it, right into the pro. We BS for 2 minutes, and then we go right into the promo slide deck. Then what I'm about to go over might seem a little foreign, because what we're moving to is that we're doing these events now, we're doing these promos inside of editorial, meaning, generally free, uh, but regardless of whether it's free or paid, we're doing this inside of delivered content, like not just a promotion for something. So when we start this room, the in my mind, as I've shown you so far, the way I just explained to you to start it, is under the assumption that there's an editorial portion in the beginning, and we're going to operate the way I just told you to set it up for at least a few minutes before we start what I would call the promo. So let's just define what the promo is under that kind of situation. So the promo is when we basically start the slide deck for a particular product. So if we spend, it doesn't matter if we spend 5 minutes talking about the markets or an hour talking about the markets or 30 seconds talking about the markets. That's the editorial part. We're not talking about a specific product that we're promoting. Once we start saying, okay, now what we're going to show you is a presentation on weekend options, that's the promo. We are not allowed to do promos on YouTube. We're only allowed to do the editorial part. So if you are opening this room and there's really no valuable editorial part in the beginning, it's just going to be 2 minutes of BS and then the promo. Then when you're in StreamYard and you're setting up that create live stream, don't bother clicking on YouTube. Only do the YouTube if there's actually going to be valuable content to live stream on YouTube, because we're going to have to cut the YouTube off the minute we start the promo. So what I do is, and again, I'll give you this boilerplate text, but you can type whatever you want. What I do is, during the editorial part, when I know that we're getting close to switching to the promo, I will type a message in the chat here that says, this stream is about to end on YouTube. If you'd like to see the second part of the presentation, please go here. And I provide the link to the WisePub room. And so one of the ideas with the YouTube is that it's going to be used more and more to bring like organic traffic and other types of traffic from social media and YouTube and stuff to the YouTube ones. But then they're going to see on every editorial in YouTube that they're missing half the presentation by only going to YouTube. And we're always going to provide them with the link to move to WisePub, because obviously on our side, we want them to see the promo. And it's much, we can provide them with much more functionality in WisePub than we can in YouTube with private messaging and other stuff like that. So we want to drive organic traffic to YouTube that we can't really drive organically to WisePub, but we do want to try and get people to switch from YouTube over to WisePub. So we'll post that message in here. This is going to end shortly. Please click this link to see the second half of the presentation. And then, 2 minutes later, when it's time to switch to the promo, we need to cut off YouTube. The way we do that is pretty easy. You'll see buttons up here for each of the destinations that we decided to stream to in the beginning. You can tell which one's YouTube by the little icon and the picture. This one is WisePub. This one is YouTube. So I'm going to click on the YouTube one, and it confirms here what it is, that it's Nathan Tucci YouTube. And I'm going to click remove. And then I'm going to click remove again. Now, we don't want to delete it on YouTube. We want the recording to stay on YouTube, but we want to remove YouTube from the stream.